Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of ECD Foundation. My name is Akshat, and today we'll be going over 3 main topics related to pre-calculus. First off, we'll be going over how to find the center and radius of the circle given a quadratic equation. Next, we're going to be going over the discriminant and how to solve it. And lastly, we're going to attempt to solve this quiz question right here. So you can see that we have a little quiz question. I want you guys to work on this right now. And at the end, we'll be going over the answer to it. Be reminded that this is a quadratic equation, so don't overcomplicate it with any methods, right? So, okay, let's start off with some question on the center and radius of the circle, right? How to solve that. And so I'm going to, so a basic formula you must know. So we'll write that down here, a basic formula for any like real center or radius of the circle to find out is that for a point HK, this reminder, this is the center. The equation would be x minus h squared plus a y minus k squared equals r squared. So given this equation, we know that hk is the center, and then r right here is the radius, and this radius is being squared in this equation, right? So suppose I give you a question, and remember, like we did last week, we talked over the basics of perfect squares and how to solve those, right? So if I give you the equation right here, let's go over x squared plus 4x plus a y squared plus 8x, and this is all equal to, give or take, 2. All right. So how would you solve this equation? Remember, you have to find a way for there to actually be a perfect square, right? So x minus h is and squared would be a perfect square. Y minus k squared would be a perfect square, right? So adding to that, let's maybe use a different color here, right? So let me write this down again. X squared plus 4x, and then plus a 4, right? Now let's go back to plus y squared plus 8x. And remember, this 8 divides to 4 and 4. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 16, right? And this is all equal to plus, and then remember what we added here, 4 plus 16, right? And so this will give you a perfect square, and it will give you a basis for r squared. So now let's actually do the equation, right? So x squared plus 4x plus 4, obviously you guys should know that is x plus 2 squared plus a y squared plus 8x plus 16 is a y plus 4 squared, and this is all equal to a 22. And so if I ask you for the center and radius of this, you should know that the center is a -2, -4, and obviously the radius. And remember, people get really tripped up about this. They'll say the radius is 22. Remember this equation right here? This r squared, right? This is a square of it. So then the radius would be the square root of 22, and this would be your answer, right? So now that you know how to solve this actual, if I give you a quadratic, you can plug in numbers to make sure that you have that perfect square, right? So now let's go over a bit of a complicated one, right? So if I can maybe clear out, sorry, give me a second. Let me try find a way of clearing this out quick. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So I just make sure that you remember that formula. Maybe try to write down, like, whenever. I always recommend taking notes, especially with these ECD week foundation weekly emails or weekly videos. Sorry. All right, let's go down to a little bit more tricky question here. So if I go back to the pen, okay, so let's go 2x squared plus 4x equals a -2y squared plus an 8. Sorry, this should be a y. plus a 10. Okay. So the first step you want to do is obviously you want to make sure that this negative y squared, this entire y side should be on the x side as well. So this should be a 2x squared plus 4x plus 2y squared minus 8y equals 10. Remember this x squared and our x and y squared is they're all equal to each other, right? So now you want to make sure that whenever the coefficient of x squared and y squared, they generally, like given an equation for a center of the circle, because they are perfect squares, they must be equal. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure the coefficient of x squared and y squared is 1. Okay, so that will give you an x squared plus 2x. Obviously, if we multiply everything by 1/2 or just divide it by 2, really the same terminology. Sorry about that. You'll get an x squared plus 2x plus a y squared minus 4y equals 5. And now this is an equation. Remember, we went from this, which some people are like, what is this, right? To a really easy, just basic question. You know that this one will give you a plus 1. And then because it's a 2 divided by, d2 divided by 2 squared, so that'll be a 1 squared. This will give you a negative 2 squared, which would be a plus 4. But for this one, this would be a negative 2. So this will give you, and then remember, you have to add it to this side as well. We'll give you an x plus 1 squared plus a y minus 2 squared. This is all equal to a 10, right? So if I give you this, if I ask center, you should know that the center is a negative 1, 2. Sorry about that line. Negative 1, 2. And then the radius should be the square root 10, right? So now that you know how to solve this kind of equation based off a quadratic, how to find the center and the radius of a circle, we're now going to move on to our next sort of lesson, and that's finding the discriminant, right? So let me erase everything. Okay, so I'm trying to keep up with the quiz question. For all of you guys, you guys can, like, while taking breaks, like right now, just work on it. And so when near the end of the video, I'll be going over it. So this is, it's a really kind of sort of basic question if you know how to sort of factor out quadratics. And I'll teach you more on that, right? So whenever you're given a question like this with sort of kind of fractional. All right, let's go back to pencil. Okay, sort of given like fractions as your degree, you'll know how to solve it, right? So now we're going to go over the discriminant. So as we all know, the quadratic formula is x equals negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? And so you see this b squared minus 4ac right here. And this actually is called the discriminant, right? Sorry about that. It's called the discriminant. And so based off the value here, suppose, let's call this area right here called E. So E equals b squared minus 4ac. So this entire equation, right? So if E is greater than 0, there's more than one solution. More than one, right? More than one solution. Excuse my handwriting. And if E equals 0, can you guess how many equations? There's actually, sorry about that, there's more than one. So this does not include one, right? So this is like, we can say more than, we'll say more than two solutions. And if equals 0, then there's only one solution. One solution. And now if E is less than 0, well, that's 0 solutions, right? Because I'll further go on to it, right? There's 0 solutions. And why is that? So let's get the top here. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. So now let's get, like, suppose it's like 64. This is greater than 0, right? So this would be a negative b plus or minus 64. So remember, this is all over 2a, right? So this would be a negative b plus or minus 8. And this is going to be a negative b minus 8 and a negative b plus 8. And this is all over 2a, giving you two solutions, right? And now let's all go back from that. Suppose I give you a negative b plus or minus 0. Okay, so then obviously the square root of 0 is 0. Negative b plus or minus 0. Negative b minus 0 would be the exact same as a negative b plus a 0. And that'll only give you one solution to this equation, right? And now we're going to go over to sort of imaginary numbers. Remember, these are all real. They're all real. This all refers to real solutions, right? So they can be imaginary, especially for e is less than 0. So a negative would be plus or minus, and this would be a negative 64. So I might say, oh, you can just transform this because I squared equals the square root of -1. So this can just be an 8i, and then you can go on from there. But remember, this is for all real solutions. This is an imaginary. Remember the difference between real and imaginary. You can't really solve this because nothing squared will give you a negative 64 unless you're using I, right? So let's get an equation. Okay, let's go. All right, let's sort of erase this right here. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, 3x squared plus 10x plus, let's go 8. All right, so now you know the formula, b squared minus 4ac. Remember, this is a b, a is 3, c is 8. Remember, we went over this last week. So if you did not check out that video, I highly recommend so. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. Now you're going to go b squared minus 4ac. This will be a 10 squared minus a 438. Okay, I'll give you a 100 minus a 12 times 8. If you guys know that, it should come off the top of your head. It's 96. This all equals to 4, right? And square root of 4 actually gives you a 2. And so you know that this, since it's greater than 0, is more than more than, we'll say 2 or more real solutions, right? So now you realize that you get the gist of it now, right? So now you know that given an equation, it can be any coefficient. It doesn't have to be the x squared, it has to be a 1, right? Given this equation right here as well, you know that a is a 3, b is a 10, c is 8. And so based off that, you can go off the equation b squared minus 4ac to find the discriminant. And when asked, how many real roots, how many real solutions are there? You can tell you, oh, there's more than one. There's 1, there's 0. Just based off this b squared minus 4ac, that discriminant, so crucial towards it. Okay, so now that we're kind of wrapping up those two sections, I want to go over the quiz question. Well, how to solve this equation right here. This really trips up people, right? And especially, I'm going to go over a way that teachers write it to specifically trick up people, right? So if I come down here, sorry about that. I've like personally as a student of pre-calculus, I've seen this done by teachers just to mess with, like, just to trick them up, see like how much they can actually interpret the question and analyze it to see how much they actually know about it, right? So what they do, sorry about that, is they get this and they're like, let's do a 1 over and they write this like this. And this really tricks up students. They're like, wait, what? How would I solve this, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you know your coefficients and how to solve them. So you know that this actually, like, I'd recommend that you rate it from like the highest to lowest as it goes on, as it progresses on. So this should be a x1/2 plus a 7x, and then the last one should be a 10x, like that. So this will give you, I mean, as you guys should know, I wrote it down, plus a 7, and then this would be a -1/2, because remember, whenever y is whenever 1 is at the numerator, it's a negative, plus a 10. Remember, this is a x -3/2. right? So now the first thing you want to think of is factoring, right? You look at all these coefficients that all have x in them, right? So you know that x is automatically a factor. But some might say, oh, wait, do you factor out the highest value, the medium value, or the lowest value, right? And that's a really easy question. You think about it like this, right? If you factor out the high value, all other values will become a negative. And that just gets you in an even worse place. If you get the lowest value, all values will be positive. So you're going to have x to the negative 3 halves, right? So negative 3 over 2. And then now you have a bracket or a parentheses. And let's go on from this equation, right? So now you're going to have a, what times this will give you 10x to the power of negative 3 over 2. And that's just a 10, right? Now 7x to the power of negative 1/2. Remember when doing this, you're adding. So then this will give you a 7x to the power of 2 over 2. Remember, 2 over 2 minus 3 over 2 is a 1 over 2, which is negative 1 over 2, which is given here, plus an x, and then remember, this is equal to a 1 over 2, so this will be a 4 over 2. And now you see that this is just a really easy question, right? Now you go over to x equals negative 3 over 2, and this will give you an x squared plus 7x plus 10. And now, really easy now. You know that 5, 2, always, it should be in your head automatically, right? When doing quadratics. So now you have the answer. This is literally the answer. X, sorry about that. Let me. Negative 3 over 2, and then x plus 5, x plus 2 is your answer. So just to recap what we've done today. So the lessons we've learned, let me write that down here. Right? So the first thing we did was center and radius of the circle. Make sure that you know the equation. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This is sort of a recap of everything, right? Next, 2, we learned about the discriminant, and that is b squared minus 4ac, right? And then lastly, what we just did right now is you want to factor with the lowest coefficient, right? So I can just point out here for number 3. And so these are the 3 lessons that we recapped over today. I hope you guys learned something. I want to make sure that you guys actually, starting now from the near future, every single quiz question, I'll put it on the top. And I want you either just pause the video, or you can work on it while I'm doing the slides, right? Whenever I take a break just to erase a section, just work on the quiz question, right? You don't waste any time. And it's just really helpful. And you will see if you take pre-calculus at school, these are questions you will see on your quiz, on your test. And I don't want you to be the student that just gets stumped up over it, right? People might say, oh, this is really hard, but you learned it here in ECDA Foundation. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys are ready for week 5. Thank you.